what we're going to be doing is recording this, and then I'm going to put it up on our YouTube channel so you'll be able to sort of watch it back. We'll also put the presentations that we do this morning up on our website for everybody to have a look at and download too. So yeah, like I say, I'll be sending out links to all those kind of things sort of later on in the week. So if you do sort of like turn up late, you will be able to sort of catch up later on, if you know what I mean. Okay, so who are we? So we're with Fab Lab Maker Hub. We were based out of Manor Hamilton, which is where we are at the moment, in the W8 Centre down here in Manor Hamilton. We run a mobile Fab Lab that travels around Leitrim, Cavan, Longford and Roscommon. And we give courses and training and sort of access to all digital fabrication information and technology. So I'm joined here by Leo. So Leo's going to be taking you through the history of post-war product design in a little while. And then next week, Leo's going to be carrying on doing concept development, design thinking, problem solving and stuff like that. Then in week 3, it'll be me again. So we're going to be doing kind of two-hander here, sort of passing backwards and forwards. Week 3, we'll be back to me doing an introduction to digital fabrication technology, giving an overview on CAD and CAM tools for product design, and a bit on sort of prototyping. And then it'll be back to both of us again for the last week, where we're going to be presenting your product, and ways to sort of, you know, get funded and get your sort of, you know, prototypes out there, and then a bit on kind of open source design. Just to say, at the end of this session, we will be leaving a bit of time for people to talk about products that they, or ideas for products that they might have. So if you do have an idea for a product and you want to talk about it, that's great. We'll have a bit of time at the end. If you have an idea for a product that you'd rather keep confidential and just talk to us one-to-one on that, we can organize one-to-one sessions for anybody that wants to do that. And again, we can organize that sort of after via email and stuff like that. So let's kick on. So I'll just give you a brief overview on Fab Lab. So this gentleman here is Neil Gershenfeld. He runs the Center for Bits and Atoms in Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. He has a multi-million-pound basically facility there, and what he's trying to do is build one of these, a Star Trek replicator. Basically, he's looking at how we can turn digital information, i.e. bits, into atoms, physical things. So in his multi-million-pound lab, he runs this sort of replicator research, but aside from that, he also has to run sort of undergrad courses. And he ran an undergrad course in MIT, which was kind of provocatively enough titled "How to Make Almost Anything." And when he ran the course, he was he kind of thought that he would only get a few, you know, nerdy students applying for it, but in fact, the course was a runaway success, and he had students from all over the faculty coming because they were interested in making something for themselves that didn't exist previously. And the sort of laboratory they worked in was called the Fabrication Laboratory, and that got shortened to Fab Lab, and that's where the name Fab Lab comes from. It was kind of a slang term that the students gave. So in the Fab Lab, he kind of realized that what they were doing was actually revolutionizing the way that manufacturing could take place. And he called this the third industrial revolution. We've actually now got what's called the fourth industrial revolution, Industry 4.0. But at the time, this was quite a sort of an important thing. And he realized that, that it had some kind of serious social implications for manufacturing. If you think about the factory worker, and that's the Apple factory in Shenzhen, they go somewhere remote from where they live to do something they don't want to do, making something designed by somebody they don't know, Johnny Ives in this case, for somebody they'll never see, to get money to buy something they actually want. He thought that a Fab Lab could turn this state of affairs on its head. And he kind of came up with these sort of like proposal that you kind of stay local to where you are, do something you want to do, making something designed by you or someone you know, for somebody you might actually see, to get money to buy something from someone local. And he saw it as a kind of a no-brainer for creating sustainable innovation. And that's exactly what MIT was thinking and what he was thinking when he was asked to do a community outreach project. So what he did was he took a scaled down version of his multi-million-dollar, lab, and he took the equipment, desktop versions of them, and put them in the community center in a kind of like rundown area in inner city Boston. He opened the doors and invited everybody in the community in to come and learn and make something. And that's the first Fab Lab there. And that Fab Lab was so successful because what it enabled the people to do was kind of upskill and get access to technology that they'd never, usually be able to get access to because it was locked away in sort of stuffy university corridors. And it became a kind of a real kind of incubator for kind of like micro industries, and a lot of kind of like little small businesses were started from it, and little products were created from there. So that was the first Fab Lab. That was back in when was that? Back in 2009 or so? Yeah, 2009, I think. So from that first Fab Lab, other Fab Labs started developing around the world, and they developed this idea of, if you have a Fab Lab in one place that has a certain prescribed set of tools and processes, if you have a Fab Lab in another area, then I should be able to just send you the files for the thing that I'm making, and then you will be able to recreate that. So basically manufacturing becomes distributed just via digital data rather than by physically shipping things around. So from that one Fab Lab in Boston back in 2009, there are now over 2,000 Fab Labs around the world, scattered all across the globe, as you can see. So we started Fab Lab Manor Hamilton in a small room above a woodwork factory in 2014. And in 2020, we launched as Fab Lab Maker Hub because we were kind of outgrowing the sort of like the local area we were in. We were being asked to do so much more in so many more places. So we made the Fab Lab mobile, and so 2020 we are now Fab Lab Maker Hub and covering a much wider sort of geographic area. So what's in a Fab Lab? So that was our original home back in Manor Hamilton. So we had laser cutting, 3D printing, 3D scanning, vinyl cutting, robotics, electronics, all that kind of stuff crammed into a room that was about what, 6 meters by 8 meters, yeah, roughly. So the kind of tools that each Fab Lab typically has are laser cutters, and this is showing you the bed of the laser cutter. A laser cutter is what's called a CNC machine. It's a computer-controlled machine that allows you to cut wood and plastic using a high-power beam of light, basically. It can also engrave onto materials as well. The other machines that we have in the Fab Lab are 3D printers. 3D printers take sort of raw rolls of plastic filament, heat it up, and then layer by layer rebuild a 3D model out of plastic. Vinyl cutters, another machine that we have in the Fab Lab. Vinyl cutters take rolls of sheet vinyl and can cut out signs, and they can cut out even tracks for circuit boards, for printed circuit boards. And then we have large format CNC machines. We didn't have room for a large format CNC machine in where we were. There is one in Leo's workshop, one very similar to that. That's a shop bot. Basically, that is has a router head on it, and again, it can cut through much thicker wood and plastic, sort of up to almost 20 mil thickness. Allowing you to build, furniture and much larger structures. Then we have electronic prototyping. That's an Arduino board. This was a project that a friend of mine made. Basically, an Arduino is just a little kind of one board mini computer. It can take inputs and outputs from sensors and sort of like then feed that through to motors and other things. And it's used quite a lot in what has been becoming known as like the Internet of Things or smart devices, which is kind of like putting brains into things that didn't have brains in the past, like fridges and toasters and stuff like that. So in the Fab Lab, we ran lots of kind of, courses there. This is just an example of some of the products that people made there in the Fab Lab. Some sort of artistic things. We, based in Manor Hamilton, we have the Leitrim Sculpture Centre sort of just around the corner from us. So we have quite a few artists coming in, sort of like making jewelry and things like that. There's some of the courses that we ran. We ran one particular course was what's called the Maker Meet, where people could just come along and kind of like have an idea for something that they themselves wanted to make, very kind of similar to this kind of a course. But it was more kind of personal projects, artistic projects that people are interested in making. So, like I say, the Fab Lab network is a global network, and it's all sort of controlled mostly by what's now the Fab Foundation. The Fab Foundation sort of runs as a charity in the States, and they're there to sort of provide, help and advice to anyone that wants to start a Fab Lab or wants to kind of explore sort of digital manufacturing and how that works. Every year, the Fab Foundation run a conference, and usually they go and kind of take over a Fab Lab somewhere in a city somewhere around the world. This year, obviously, due to the pandemic, they've had to bring that online. So they're going to be running their first online conference in July. So that'll be something that everybody can just tune into and just watch some of the presentations and conferences and things going on. That'll be quite interesting. In Ireland, we started with ourselves and a few of the other Fab Labs. We started Fab Foundation Ireland, which is kind of a group set up to, you know, help promote Fab Labs and the work that Fab Labs do around Ireland. And that map there kind of shows you where some of the other Fab Labs exist, or where they are sort of in the process of existing. Because there's Fab Labs starting up. Well, globally, there seems to be a Fab Lab starting up one a week around the world, and not quite so many in Ireland. And then lastly, the Fab Foundation run this course called the Fab Academy. And the course is basically the original How to Make Almost Anything course that Neil Gershenfeld started, you know, back in the early 2000s. And that course is just run online around the world, with people sort of joining in weekly. The great thing about the Fab Academy course, though, is that all of the lectures are available to watch, again, online. So if you want to go and watch along Neil Gershenfeld explaining digital fabrication, you can actually go and do that. I think that's the end of that one. So that just gives you a brief overview of Fab Labs and, you know, what Fab Labs are and where they come from, and the kind of tools and machines that we have here. I'm now going to pass you over to Leo, who is going to talk to you on the design.
Okay. Hello there. Can everybody hear me? Hopefully you all can. Okay, thank you, Stuart.
You just need to switch the presentations. Will I switch it for you?
Yeah, do, yeah.
So, okay, hang on. Hang on one sec. I'll just switch presentations. Here we go. Yeah, that's it. Right, now then. Make you presenter. There we go. Okay.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, so my name is Leo Scarff. As Stuart mentioned there, I am a product designer by trade or by training. I've been in this area for many years now, about 25 years or so. I run my own company, Leo Scarff Design, mostly specializing in lighting, furniture, that kind of thing. And I teamed up with Alistair and Stuart to start the Fab Lab, as he mentioned there, some years ago. The reason being, I think that all three of us have an interest in the kind of digital design, fabrication world. I've been making a lot of what I do using those means for years and years. So what is this course all about? Stuart mentioned several aspects of it there. I'd just like to say that you know, we have 6 people here today, I think. It would be great, just before I get started, it would be great to see and to hear about you today. Normally, when we run this course, obviously the people are in the room physically, and we can all chat about what ideas we have, what background we have. So it would be nice if you could all switch on certainly your audio and participate towards the end of today. literally, it'll just be a kind of a run round, say your name, say what your background is, and if you have an idea for a product that you would like to develop over the course of the 4 weeks, you can talk about it then. If you're not willing to do that today, if you don't have an idea today, we'll certainly look at that next week. So we'll leave a little bit of time today, about 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so at the end, to do that. And we'll be doing that pretty much every day if we can. Next week, I'd certainly like to do that again. So you might have a think about it today, and next week we can spend that time, and hopefully we'll have everybody on screen so that we can all kind of chat and share our thoughts. Okay, just to get started, normally what we do at the start of the course is some kind of basics and an overview. I'm going to talk a little bit about post-war product design history for the next while. It's incredibly difficult to sum up even the last 50 or 60 years of product design in 40 minutes. It's not possible to do it. What I will say is that they're really just pointers. I'll talk about certain movements, certain products, certain product designers, and you might take some time then later on yourself to maybe check some of those out. Okay, I'll start with a very, very famous product designer, as some of you might know. She is probably Ireland's most famous designer of things, because she did many, many things. She was an architect, designer of furniture, designer of homewares, rugs, artistic works, her name being Eileen Gray. She lived to be, I think, 96, 93 or 96, a very old lady indeed, spanning, nearly 100 years of the evolution of product design. A famous quote from her there: "In order to create, we must first question everything." I think it's anybody who reads about Eileen Gray will understand that is her, that was her. Every single day she reinvented herself, her work, and questioned the nature of things. She was an incredible woman, incredibly talented. You can see just a selection of some of her pieces there. As a starting point, if you're interested in design or if you're interested in products, she's an incredible person to check out and research. Beautiful work. Okay, in terms of the last 60, 70 years of design, we've had incredible change during that period of time. During the war, obviously, it was a tumultuous time for everybody, with the world shaken to its core. But at the same time, there was a lot of innovation taking place in the war, obviously military-wise, and a lot of the innovations in terms of manufacturing and the materials used to create weapons of war then carried through into kind of 1950s post-war industrialization. We have some images there of the Festival of Britain in 1951, which I suppose was one of the first celebrations of innovation that took place after the war. Some incredible buildings were created for that festival, and it was visited by hundreds of thousands. Lots of kind of demonstrations of the latest technology in terms of, households, what you might have in your home, what type of car you might drive, and what type of buildings people might create in the future. And, of course, it was the first of many festivals that were held across the world to celebrate the innovations that were taking place. Now, the 1950s saw this kind of new age of mass consumerism. All the innovations taking place, particularly in the world of plastics, brought about, numerous launches of, ways or technological means in which to speed up the process of, making food, preparing food, washing your clothes, cleaning your house. All these innovations, transformed the world in which we live in. In 1950s Ireland, obviously we had the introduction of electricity nationwide for the first time. So, everybody was very excited about what types of appliances could be used in their homes. So it was, probably the first time that Irish people, in a general sense, saw the use of fridges and stoves and stovetop appliances that you could use. So some images there of Electrolux and Braun, the very famous German firm. So, a lot of kind of innovations were material based and production based, but we had a lot of incredible styling right throughout the 50s and 60s. Other, kind of companies to note there, Olivetti, which was an Italian firm specializing in kind of electronic goods. Their famous typewriter there. Even just taking one product, that was a plastic typewriter, which, they completely rationalized how people used a typewriter and made not only the typewriter available worldwide at a very low cost, but in terms of operating it and changing the tape, it was incredibly easy. The parts could be got anywhere in the world. So there was lots of innovations, not just in the look and feel of a product, but also how it was consumed, and that, how easy it was to get parts and fix it. So that translated into so many products during that era. We have Mary Quant there, the famous UK fashion designer who experimented a lot with, the innovations in terms of fabric, the use of polyester and nylon. We have the Futuro house there, Matti Surinen's famous Finnish fiberglass house, which was a very futuristic take on how we might live, and just one of the kind of innovations that took place in the built environment. Other people to note from the 60s there, we have the incredibly famous Joe Colombo on the left there, with his experiments in the use of plastics within furniture and within interiors. His famous low-cost miniaturized kitchen unit. On the left, we have Werner Panton, the very famous Danish designer. Werner Panton worked right across the board: buildings, interiors, furniture, household products. Famous for his incredible use of color in everything he did. the 1960s being that era of psychedelia. Really incredible, mind-blowing work in many ways. Some of his seating and lighting products there. During that time, we had certain other incredibly influential designers working. Here we have Dieter Rams. Some of you might have heard of him. Rams is possibly the most influential product designer we have ever had. He worked famously for a company called Braun in Germany, all the way from the 1940s, late 40s, post-war, right the way up to now. He's an old man now. That's him recently. There was quite an interesting movie made about him a couple of years ago, which is available online. Just type in his name. And he is famous for lots of things. He did a lot of electronic goods. He did furniture as well. But he's famous for his list of 10 design principles that you should use to create something. And I don't have the memory to list them off for you now. Check out Dieter Rams. He is incredibly minimalist in his approach, so he pares away, all the extraneous stuff that we don't need when it comes to products. And what you're left with is a very pure design in look, in aesthetics, in color, and incredibly functional. So he's incredibly critical about our current modern age with all the excesses that we have today. So he's an interesting guy. Another contemporary of his, moving on, I suppose, into the 70s here, Richard Sapper is an Anglo-Swiss, I think, designer, has worked on numerous areas. Couple of his product designs there, his Tizio task lamp on the left-hand side, one of the first lighting products that used low voltage power way back in the 70s. And the power is actually transmitted through the hinges of the light, which was incredibly innovative for its time. A big seller. On the right-hand side there, one of my own personal favorite products is Espresso Maker, which again was designed in about 1974 or 75. Still in production today, still one of the best espresso makers in the world. An interesting one. I have one and use it every single day, at least once a day, if not twice. And I've had that for about 23 or 24 years. And it works exactly the same today as it did then, way back when I bought it. So I always mention it in any talks that it is a very important aspect of any product design that it should last and it should be good quality and well made and stand the test of time. So check out Richard Sapper's work. In the 1970s, we had radical change in many ways. Two leading figures, certainly in terms of music and fashion there, Vivienne Westwood and Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols. You have to remember back in the 70s, we all had long hair and flares. So having people, from the punk movement literally exploding a bomb in that style changed everything. So they were incredibly influential, not just with their art, but in terms of the graphics, in terms of the styling, in terms of what they did. Others who were influential in a different way to very famous Steves here. Stuart mentioned Johnny Ives, who created a lot of Apple products in more recent times. These guys started it back in the 70s. You can just see Steve Jobs in the very bottom left there. That's an image that he had up on screen in one of his talks. So Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak started Apple way back in the day. This is them in their early days with their circuit boards. They went on, obviously, to create so many innovations in computer technology. You know, the likes of the cursor on the screen, the use of a mouse, and the incredible styling that they gave to so many of their products. And we all know where that led. Obviously, design was incredibly important for Steve Jobs, and that's why they're the success story that they are today. I think their concentration on how we use technology and how it looks was very important. Another radical departure in many ways was this group. Memphis was an Italian design group which was started in the late 70s and into the 80s by a collection of kind of Central European designers, mostly in the kind of furniture area, but they did a lot of electronic goods as well. They came through an era of kind of functionality where everything was streamlined and made very minimal, and really hated a lot of that and decided to react against it. So they created some incredibly influential design collections and had shows across Europe at the time. Some of their pieces here, and they just went crazy. It was a reaction against the time, so they just put so many random elements together in their work to try to provoke, I suppose, people into moving in different ways. And you know, it looks very peculiar and kind of childish maybe to a lot of people, but it has been one of the most influential movements in recent decades. Let's move on. In the 1980s, we had that kind of dawning of DIY culture that we all know and love today. An example from a magazine there of all the goods, the household goods that we can fit in our SUV. We really have an era now, I suppose, of incredible choice where literally anything can be picked up from our local hardware and DIY store. So it begs the question, do we need it all? A famous designer here from the 1980s and 90s, Phillip Stark. Phillip Stark is I suppose, coined as the first design star. These are some of his early products. Stark is incredibly, if not the most influential designer of the last 40 years. He has designed everything from cars, motorbikes, houses, right down to small household items. And he has been incredibly provocative as well about where the design world is going. So another name for you to check out there, lots and lots of videos and so on Stark. Through the 90s and into the noughties, we've had a lot, time to think about where we're going as a species and the type of product that we are making and should be making. Obviously, there's a lot of ethics that revolve around products. We all know that we consume too much and use a lot of the material resources of the planet in a negative way. Just an interesting photo there from National Geographic from about 25 years ago, where they asked a typical household of 4 in the US to save all their waste for 1 year, and they provocatively put it out on their front lawn and took a photograph. So that just shows you what a typical family can actually generate in the course of a year. It's a lot of waste. So we all need to think about that when we create new products. We have Smile Plastics, a recycled plastic product on the top right there, and we can use a lot of the things that we throw away in new ways. So have a think about that. There's lots of ways to be creative and to be innovative without reinventing the wheel. Here's an interesting little project by a man in Alaska whose dog was run over on the road and broke its legs. So rather than put the dog down, he got an old trolley, a shopping trolley, and reconditioned it, added a couple of straps, and the dog could fit in the trolley and could walk again. So we don't have to create brand new, entirely new products. We can reuse and recondition existing things into a new use. So over the last 20 years or so, we've had huge innovations, both in the low-tech form and high-tech. So it's interesting just to note the differences, that we can do things in very low-tech ways. For example, in kind of growing nations, I won't say third world, we don't say that anymore. And in the West, we have access to technology that can create incredible things. So some of the innovations that you might look at, you might be interested in sportswear, for instance. Is there a product there that you feel the need for? That's maybe looking at the engineering side of things. You might have an idea for a very specific tool to use in a specific sport. Normally what I say is, an interesting starting point is to start with something, an area that you know and love and have lots of experience with. I think you'll be able to come across some innovative aspect of that you could develop. You might look at work equipment, for instance. Here we have Fiskars, the Finnish brand on the left-hand side here, who are incredibly innovative in all their products. They examine how people work on a daily basis and try to improve very minute aspects of that. Again, think about new uses of established products. An interesting little project by somebody there examining your bucket, a very typical bucket that you can buy in any hardware store, and what are all the various ways and means you can use that product for. And moving on to more recent times, Stuart mentioned the dawn of the Fab Lab culture that we have now. The notion of maker spaces has really come into play as well. So Fab Lab, I suppose, is a specific coming together of technology and people in a network. But in a more open sense, you have maker spaces, which are really just communities of people right across the world that have come together in lots of various ways to share their ideas and share how you can make things. So we have numerous maker spaces right across the world, which I suppose are involved in this next slide, with this notion of hacking. We've all heard of hacking from a computer point of view, but you can, of course, have the notion of object hacking. You know, again, I'm interested in that notion that you don't have to completely generate something from scratch. Why not take an existing item? In this case here, this is a project where they thought of how many uses can we make of your typical tin can or your glass jar, and use the likes of 3D printing technology to modify those or add to those in some way to create a new product. So that's an interesting idea that you might check out for your work. Now, we're going to be talking about CAD/CAM later on, week 3. Just to mention it, we do run CAD/CAM courses at various times. CAD/CAM, I suppose, is how you can create 3D models of your products and ideas, and how that is translated into the manufacturing area. So that's a whole world in itself, which can take several weeks to get your head around. Stuart is going to talk in some length, like I say, in week 3. So we've moved into an era in the last 15 years or so where we've had an explosion of digital fabrication, most notably because a lot of the patents, the early patents on that technology have run out. So you have a lot of companies, thousands of companies across the world, creating 3D printers of various kinds. And so many people working in this field now, right from household goods, fashion, through to the automotive area. Literally every field has people specializing in it. We have one example there, Iris van Herpen, who is a Dutch fashion designer, producing the most spectacular outfits. So there's lots of videos and lots of images, available online of what you can do with the technology. Just to focus for the last few slides on areas of innovation. So looking at the future, what's coming. Several areas I suppose stand out for being truly innovative and I suppose pushing the world forward. Obviously, car design is one that appeals to so many. We all love our cars, and it's an area where technology which has been developed is used in an incredible way. Just some of the cars we're likely to be driving in the next 10 to 15 years. That is an area where I suppose the likes of 3D printing is really coming into play. The likes of robotic design and fabrication is really, really changing the speed and the innovation which is taking place in that field. A couple of people to mention there. We have Ross Lovegrove, bottom left-hand side there, and his car. You might check out Ross. I'll mention him again, as he's another top product designer in the world at the moment. So my last few slides here. Obviously, one of the major kind of instigators of innovation is the military. It always has been, always will be. We all know the levels of funding that governments around the world give to it. Much of it, I have to say, is negative, but a lot of it is positive as well. A lot of the innovations there translate into what the types of products that we know and love outside of that field. So the likes of virtual reality is really taking hold. The robotics area for transportation, just kind of three areas within the military world of note. Now we're seeing huge change and a lot of innovation in the renewable energy area. Solar, wind and wave are transforming how we use energy, the type of energy we use in a very positive way. And a lot of the material innovations are taking place in this area. So it's one to watch. Apple are obviously one to note from a product design perspective. Just some aspects of what they do. They create super powerful, very minimal, very flexible and very connected products. They are the success story that they are for a reason. Their products are not only beautiful but function very well, as Stuart mentioned there. So we could take a whole course and just look at how what kind of strategy the likes of Apple have with their products. Just looking for a second at the user interface design area. You might have come across UI in various aspects of your life. We all use, I suppose, high-tech products every day, whether it's our phones or TVs or laptops. All of those ways in which we interact with the technology have to be designed, just as the physical things are. So this whole area of user interface design, that's just an image of the Apple iWatch. That is a very, very important aspect of product design, and a lot of product designers who train in that area are, I suppose, upskilling and moving into this field because there's so much work in it, because we have so many high-tech products to create. So that experience that you have when you're using your phone, let's say, there's a huge amount of work that goes on behind the scenes in terms of the interface, the technology, the way it looks, the way you touch the screen, the way the software works with the hardware. So that's another field that you might see some innovation in. Now, the medical world is obviously critical to us all, and we've seen massive innovations there in recent years, a lot of which have been on the news in recent months. So a lot of the digital design and manufacturing that we're going to be talking about in the coming weeks is and has been used in this field over recent years. So you know, there are a lot of positive aspects to the likes of 3D printing for this area. We've all heard of those replacement parts for our body that we can, you know, we can use and order, all the way down to those 3D printed stents that we can implant in our hearts. So lots of news stories there. That is the future, I suppose, for us. We will, in years to come, become that bionic man or woman of old. Just some of the various body parts where the technology that we're talking about is used. So that is the future. We have a lot of ethical questions to ask of ourselves about the products that we create. Will we become a product? That is the question. So just a very short synopsis, I suppose, of the last 50 or 60 years. Couple of names that you might check out. There's tons and tons of material online to get you started.
I'll put some links in the chat there for people. Just some stuff. If you want to check some of those out, there's some links there. As you've been talking there.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we're at the point now. We finish up in roughly a half an hour. I suppose at this point of the course, what we normally do is ask everybody a little bit about you and what ideas you have. The purpose of this course is not only you know, for people to learn a little bit about what product design is, how to go about designing a product, but we want to hear about the ideas that you have and that you would like to develop. Now I was talking to Stuart earlier on that maybe some of you don't have anything that you necessarily want to work on, and that's fine. But if you do, we'd certainly like to hear about it. And I suppose something to mention just now is that we're very limited in terms of the time that we have with you, just literally just 4 days. But what we can do is we can recommend lots of companies, lots of websites, lots of links, places that you can go to find out more. There might be a particular company that we know that might be able to help with an aspect of what you're trying to do. So I always say that right at the start, that we have incredible power in this room that we're in. Some of you might be able to help one of your colleagues. So it is a resource for you to use, not just the technology, but the brains that we all have. So how would you like to go about?
So yeah, like I was saying, it'd be great if people could jump on their microphones and we could we could just have a little, intro on who everybody is. So I'll start at the top of the list here in terms of what I can see in alphabetical order. So we've got Emmett there. Is Emmett online? Can we hear Emmett? Nope. No. Okay. He could be. Okay, let's try next in the list. Grace. Is Grace there? Nope. If you've joined the session just listening, what you might need to do is click on the leave audio button down the bottom and rejoin with your microphone. That is, if you have one. Okay, I can see Patricia has her microphone on, so let's try Patricia. Patricia, are you there?
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
We can indeed.
Yes, I work with a community organisation regarding crafts and also food producers. I'm really looking at help and information that I can also share with them. Because we have a craft shop ourselves, so we do make small crafts ourselves. So it's really to know how to develop some ideas that we have, but not in specific. And then in addition to that, myself and my husband, he's a builder, but he also has some ideas that he would like to look at developing down the line as well. So that's where I'm coming from.
Perfect. Is there one thing that you is sort of top of the list for you at the moment that you think actually that's the one thing I'd like to just have a go at, just prototyping, developing?
Maybe by next week, because I have a lot of ideas now in my head after listening to your presentation. That perhaps next week I might have one or two that I really want to look at developing further, if that's okay, Stuart.
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfect. Yeah. So next week is all about the product development process. So Leo's going to take you through the kind of the design thinking process on, how to go about, a series of steps to sort of like develop products. So that's perfect. What kind of crafts are you developing at the moment?
The crafts we have at the moment are quite small scale. They would be using local materials that are no longer in use, like slate that would be used, recycled materials like slate and driftwood and bog oak and things like that. So we often make small pieces, sell them, and then go on to something else, depending on what we have. But regarding the farmers market, we have a lot of producers there that are now going from just being farmers market producers to developing their products and design and packaging and moving on to online sales, which we want to help them with and help them with progressing in that direction. It may not necessarily be what this course is about, but there's certainly some ideas that I'd be able to help them with.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, certainly packaging is definitely one thing that we can talk about on the last session. I'd say probably,
yeah. That's certainly a small element of one of the days. So we certainly will talk about it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, cool.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. I see Kevin there.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi there, Kevin. Yeah, we can indeed. Yep.
Okay. I'm a barber, and I've been in the hairdressing and barbering industry for over 20 years, maybe more. And
can you do us a black market haircut?
Sorry?
Can you do us a black market haircut?
Well, I'm working on the virtual haircut. If we could do a 3D machine that could haircut, I'd be a very rich man. But that's something to look at. No, at the moment, obviously with the COVID situation and PPE protection and that, I've been working on an idea to protect the barber or stroke hairdresser and the customer in a contained environment, a small pod, to allow access to be able to carry out the service, but also to provide a insulated area which can be cleaned and sanitized very easily, and also, as I said, separating the customer and the barber from each other, so the requirements for PPE are reduced and the infection, the chances of infection and cross-contamination are reduced because of not breathing on the customer. Let's just say, yeah, that's what I'm working on, or I have been working on for a few weeks.
Brilliant.
Yeah. No, it sounds great. I think, as Stuart was saying there, everybody is going around with longer hair than normal. It is an issue. I have seen photographs just recently of barbers in the likes of Spain and Italy where they've started back working, and everybody is fully decked out with visors and gloves and so on. I think it is an issue because of the proximity of the two. How does that work? You're literally right next to somebody, but yet you need access to something, namely their hair. So how is that done? It's a very tricky area. So I think any innovation in it, I mean, the potential is huge. We're going to see that in the next 6 months, where a lot of the lessons we learned in the last 2 or 3 months are going to pan out. So we're going to see a whole dearth of numerous products related to how to keep people safe.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is amazing, and it's. It certainly will require some work, but if you can come up with something that's innovative and does the job well, the potential is huge.
Yeah, that's what I thought. As
Great.
you said, knowing something, something about that your industry, you're coming from that industry, you understand it better. So that was my thinking.
Cool.
Great. Well, I mean, if we're here to help. So, it's entirely up to you. If you want to come to us with some ideas written down on a page, if you have a sketch, if you have a photograph,
I've made a prototype of sort of improvised a product that's already on the market and improvised it for this use, like you were saying. So I have a prototype. Rough prototype, let's just say, and a bit of work done on it. But but I'd like to run it by somebody and get some expert advice on it.
Great. Yeah. Well, like I said, we're here to help. If we can't physically help you to make a prototype or a more resolved prototype, we can certainly put you in touch with a company that could make something for you. I mean, we know numerous companies all over Ireland and abroad. So just come to us with what you need.
I should also mention that the Maker Hub sort of project is funded by people down in the bottom right hand corner, the Upper Shannon Erne Future Economy project. So we're based in Leitrim, but we cover these 4 counties. We have connections with all of the LEOs, the local enterprise offices in each of those counties. So again, if there's kind of like funds for sort of like feasibility studies and stuff like that, we can try and put you in touch with the various people in the enterprise offices who may be able to help you develop that further as well. So yeah, if you just let us know what county you're in. I think most people are probably in Leitrim or...
Leitrim, I'm Leitrim, yeah.
Yeah, at the moment. We can certainly get in touch with the relevant people in the LEOs who might be able to, help there as well. That's brilliant. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Emmett.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Good. Yes, we can hear you. Perfect.
Very good. Well, my one's very, very simple, guys. I'm trying to start up a clothing brand. I've a birthmark on my face, and obviously my whole life, and I'm really big into my fashion, so I'm trying to start a clothing brand, all to do with like image awareness and skin deficiencies, and just kind of like there will be male clothes and all the rest, because that's obviously what I want myself, but I think it's actually going to be females that are going to probably love it the most.
Good.
And I'm going to try and market it pretty hard to like big time makeup artists, to say that it's okay sometimes not to wear makeup and blah blah blah. So I'm just in the design process now, so I've just got all my brand logos back from my designer, and
Right. Okay.
hopefully have a test. I'm getting a tester run put out in the next hopefully week or two, and then I need to start looking for manufacturers and stuff like that, which is the hard side of it, and then the legal side too with trademarks. I'm not good with that at all. I've absolutely no idea with the legal side at all. But
we have kind of spoken about that lots of times in the past. I through various lectures and courses and programs. It is a bit of a minefield, the whole copywriting patent area, and can be very costly. So we can talk about that again. What product you have, where you're trying to go with it. Obviously, if you're trying to launch a product, it depends where you're selling that product as to what copyright you need to do and what patenting, because each country has their own. So if it's a sensitive product in that area, it's really how long is a piece of string, because you need to file all of that legal stuff in each region that you're going to sell in. So again, it is a bit of a minefield, but you just take these things one step at a time. You mentioned that you're trying to manufacture the range now. So even if we can help with that, absolutely, we might be able to put you in touch with companies that could make various parts, and we can certainly advise on what you should do from a whole brand strategy point of view.
I just put a link in the chat there. There's a podcast series called Articles of Interest, all about fashion, and they did a really interesting an episode on knockoffs, and that goes into the whole area, which is a very murky area on sort of like copywriting fashion and copywriting designs and brands. So
that's brilliant.
Have a listen to that. I mean, it's a great series anyway, but that episode in particular is very interesting. So you may get some sort of knowledge and sort of like caveat emptor
realization.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. It's just the fear of like having it and then just launching it or something, and then some company like H&M or somebody and someone like that just jumping in. Boom,
well, that's exactly what that episode's about.
Yeah.
So,
perfect. Thanks for putting that in. I'll have a listen to that now.
Yeah. Good stuff. So who have we got? Is Grace on there now? Do we have Grace? No. Paul? Is Paul online?
I don't know why, but I was actually struggling every time I put my microphone on. I couldn't hear you guys.
All right, okay.
I don't know what was going on there for a while, so unless they're having the same problem, maybe.
Okay. If you can hear us, but you can't speak, say something in the chat. What about Shane? Is Shane online? Aha.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can indeed, Shane. How are you doing?
Hey, pretty good, pretty good. I suppose one of the areas I work in is as a business coach. So I was really interested in just seeing what you guys do, and then potentially some of the people that I work with could be a good fit of working with you guys.
Okay.
So I do have, for example, one guy that's working, he's developing a sports product. It's a flotation device for if you're an open water swimmer.
Right, yeah.
Say again?
Sorry, no, go ahead, yeah, go ahead.
So I was just really interested to see, and he's based in Leitrim, what you guys do and how that could fit in with some of the, I suppose, customers or clients that I would have.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, absolutely. What kind of stages of development are the products that you're sort of seeing, you know?
Well, it could be, some people I'd speak to would be at the very start where they've just got an idea. Other people are at the later stages where they're looking to market their product and they're trying to get sales. So that particular person I'm speaking of there, he's already started to sell. So he's already got sales now in probably about 10 countries. But he's still doing product development. Okay. His whole idea, he wants to keep developing products. And then where he needs help is then on the sales and marketing side. So he's developing a light now as well. It's a light that it's sealed, so you can use in water, and then it's recharged on a touchpad. And he's working with a couple of companies up in Northern Ireland to develop that. But he's full of ideas, so he's going to have a load of other ideas. So I was very interested in seeing what you guys do and whether, it could be a good link for him to go and speak with you guys and see for future products that you might have. There might be a good fit there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It'd be great. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, sure.
And if there's anybody sort of like at the beginning stages that really needs help, kind of like at the very start, that's somewhere where we can really kind of like add value. Obviously, we can, if people have stuff on the market and they're looking at sort of like developing new products, then yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. So there, definitely. Who's there? Paul. I saw Paul coming online there.
How are you doing?
Good.
So my background is architecture, and I'm interested in all things CAD/CAM and Revit and all those things. And digital manufacture is kind of coming into architecture, but not on a big scale. And it's just kind of to update my skills in those areas and see if there's any possibilities, developing products or improving manufacture in the building industry. That's really my background and my interest in these things. So sort of from my experience, like digital manufacture tends to be on a slightly smaller scale than the building industry, but it's changing, like a lot of things like 3D printed titanium bolts and things like that are becoming more commonplace, both for prototyping and for actual on-site use. So
yeah, I think specifically the 3D printed world is transforming by the day, and as you've probably seen, there are quite a few companies now printing the likes of cement to create buildings. There's lots of stories, from right around the world, from Russia, from China, of companies there producing housing units very, very fast, literally in 24 hours, having a house built. there are companies working with NASA now to build the 3D print, livable units for use in space, for use on the moon and Mars. So there's lots of stories around that as well. You probably heard some. So it is literally, there are something like 300 different types of material that you can print using a 3D printer now, including gold, silver, glass, ceramic. And food is a huge area for it now. So it's not really about the technology anymore. The technology is there. It's there for everybody to use, and you can practically, physically make anything or almost anything. The problem is getting a good idea, which is a sustainable one, which we all need instead of want. There's a lot of stuff in the world that we don't need. So I suppose that's the question for you all and for us all, to continue thinking about that. Is there something there which is truly innovative, which could change people's lives or help them in their life? If you're talking about the built environment, it's a massive area when it comes to digital design and fabrication, and I think we're going to see, as you mentioned there, Paul, that how buildings are built in the future needs to be in a sustainable way, and the technology could be of great help in that. So look, if you want to have a think about all the ideas that you might have, and maybe is there something there that you'd like to develop, and we can talk about that next week.
Is there anything in particular, Paul, that you're thinking about developing, or? Hello?
Still there?
Oh yeah. Oh, I think he's muted.
It's muted.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Sorry. Is there anything in particular, Paul, that you're thinking of developing it?
Your audio is very echoey, so I didn't quite catch the question again.
Yeah.
You
Apologies.
say, Leo.
Okay. Yeah. So Paul, I was basically just saying, is there any one particular idea or product that you might like to work with us on over the course?
I'm quite interested in how you could make joints in timber. Just rather than actually making individual products, that you actually look at how you would make joints. However that is, like one of the things with mass manufacturers, it has to be reasonably fast, and that's not aligned with a lot of 3D printing. So it's just to get sort of ideas around that and to develop those, and to use more sort of automated processes, and then say there are normal timber manufacturing technologies that can be used to make buildings, and I suppose it's to think about how joints could be made in that.
You might just call up the WikiHouse link there, Stuart, just while I chat. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things coming to mind, Paul. I mean, there's numerous companies. In terms of joints, the whole CNC world, has so many links and work out there that you can access. A CNC machine can obviously cut very accurate joints in lots of different ways, for use in furniture, for use in small products, and right up to the larger kind of timber frame buildings and so on. A lot of companies, the likes of WikiHouse there, Stuart is just putting it up, comes to mind straight away.
I'm also just going to copy the link for this one here. The Japanese, I think that should work. That's digital fabrication jointing systems.
Yeah.
You know the one.
Yeah, I was going to say that there's lots of links that we can supply you with of numerous digifab connections and ways to connect things. So yeah, I mean, if you want to have a think about that, Paul, you know, is it just that research that you want to focus on to develop maybe a range of connecting systems? That's great. That would be fine with us, and we can help in whatever way. Put you in touch with companies. We have access to the machinery. So put it together for next week, and we can chat again. Yeah.
Perfect, brilliant. I have one more try. Grace, can you hear us? I don't know if she can or she can't. Say something.
If you want to type something in the chat room, Grace, just to let us know that you're there.
Nope. She could be listening on a phone, in which case it might be tricky. Yeah. Anyway, if you want to think about what you want to do for next week, and then, like I say, Leo will be going through the sort of design process next week, and then we can chat more. And again, if you want to email either of us, I'll put email address in the chat there, and Leo's email address is pretty much the same. I can spell. Oh, I obviously can't spell at the moment. There we go. There are two email addresses, so you can email either or both of us. So listen, thanks everybody for coming along today. That's pretty much 90 minutes. Like I say, I'll make the recording of this available online afterwards, and I'll send you out links to that. And the presentations as well I'll stick up on the website, and again put those in the links. And so it'll be next Tuesday, 11 o'clock, and we'll see everybody then. So thanks a million.
Okay. Thanks a lot, folks. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.